Hi, my love. Welcome to the Gemma Hanley podcast. My name is Gemma. I'm your host. This is the space where I have honest conversations about overcoming anxiety and overwhelm so that you can calm your nervous system and feel really confident and happy and calm from within yourself. Along the way, I share my own stories of holistically healing 23 years of anxiety and depression myself. And so if you're a woman seeking answers to perfectionism, people-pleasing, burnout, resistance, you may love, you're in the right place. Let's do it. Let's begin. And before we begin, I want to pay my respects and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land upon which I am recording from, which is the Gubbi Gubbi tribe. And I want to extend that acknowledgement to their elders, past, present, and emerging, as well as anybody of Indigenous or Torres Strait Islander heritage watching this replay. Lady love, hi! Welcome back to the potty, here to have a passionate conversation inspired by some of what I'm seeing in the coaching space and in the coaching world at the moment that just does not sit well with me. So I wanted to bring this episode as a tool, as a prompt, and as a resource for you to maybe begin exploring your healing, your self-development, any stuckness, any feeling like you've tried heaps of strategies and they haven't worked for you, which brings about states of, and I can remember this oh so well myself, like feeling defeated, feeling hopeless, feeling absolutely perplexed, frustratingly confused, and basically just wanting to scream, like, show me what the fuck it is that I need to see so that I can change my situation, because I'm ready to show up. I'm ready to do this work. However, all the strategies or all the ways that I've tried up until now, they might change things for a little bit, but then I find myself back in the old pattern, or they've only taken me so far. Yeah, so it's almost like this sugar hit where you get the high and there's this short-term feeling good, and then it feels like it comes crashing down again, and you might not be exactly back where you started, but you don't feel like you're far enough forward for it to have really felt like a fulfilling experience, or for you to believe that genuine, sustainable, ongoing healing and growth is available for you. And I'm here to tell you it is, lady love. And that's why I'm so passionate about this, because I think every time we're only given a few pieces of the puzzle, or we're misled to believe that we should just be able to do something because it's worked for someone else, and maybe they're not actually as embodied in that work, or don't have the depth of understanding that's required to help to guide you forwards. And so that's why I love this podcast. Having a platform for longer form content, to be able to give you free content that you can revisit as much as you want, and really to just, spark curiosity, spark creative thinking, spark open-mindedness in yourself of, okay, which pieces to the puzzle have I maybe not had yet that could really shift and change this game for me? That's what we're here for. So the title of this episode, A Fast Way to See Your Blind Spots and Measure Your Growth. I feel like a really great place to begin. If you've been in my world a little bit, you will have heard me use this word blind spot before, but a great place to begin could be actually in explaining what the fuck is that? So a blind spot is anywhere in our healing or growth where we haven't yet become aware of what is causing us to be stuck, or we might be aware of it on a surface level, but we don't understand like the real mechanics of why that pattern is there, how it's working for us, what function it's playing, what need it is meeting within our lives. And so it's almost actually impossible to change it or to replace it if we don't understand the mechanics of it first. So it's like, if we don't understand how the engine is working, we can't really get in there and change it, or what is the word I want? Not like maintenance, like service it. We can't service it if we don't even know how it works, right? And the other thing that I can explain to you about a blind spot, it's going to be sitting within the subconscious programming. Yeah, we all have both a conscious and a subconscious. The conscious mind, or the conscious, is more of that logical, rational, sense-making, judgmental, like black and white thinking. Yeah, intellectualizing things, whereas our subconscious, and I often speak about the conscious as upstairs. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to see what I'm doing with my hands. Upstairs, right? Like up in the head, right? Whereas, and I call like downstairs, come down into the body, is where we find our subconscious. We all have the subconscious mind as well, which is home to all of our memories, all of our experiences, our emotions, our attitudes. It's limitless. It has an imprint and a memory of everything we've ever experienced, even though we don't have access to that consciously every second of every day, as we would go a little bit crazy. We wouldn't be able to function. But it is accessible, right? And when you build a relationship of trust and rapport with yourself, you begin to gain access to more and more of what is stored at a subconscious level, including the patterns, so the automatic patterns that you use of thinking and behavior that are showing up in your world every single day, and creating the reality you're experiencing. Now, for some of you, that will be 10 out of 10. You're stoked with the reality that you're experiencing. And for some of you, loves, that will be less than pleasing. Yeah, there will be some things that you're really keen to understand and to shift and change in your world. And so the more access that you have and the more skills that you have to learn to connect with your subconscious and work with your subconscious, the more that you understand subconscious programming, the easier that's going to become for you. And so because we cannot access all of our subconscious at any one point in time, there are parts we're blind to, right? There are blind spots. As a human, we are also, and particularly when our ego is at play, which is the part of us that wants to be right, the part of us that feels safe when we are validated exactly as we are, when we are seen as perfect, when we're seen as significant. And there's nothing wrong with us. There's nothing to be looked at. Yeah. When our ego is at play, we will also have a tendency, or like a bias, to not see the pieces or the parts that maybe bring up emotions of shame, embarrassment, fear, or states of uncertainty, because we're not sure if other people are going to love, accept, tolerate, welcome in, celebrate, be able to love the pieces of us that we see as less than, or not good enough, or too vulnerable, or too raw, or maybe even just too much, too sensitive. And so without necessarily meaning to or having conscious awareness to the fact that we're doing it, we can turn a blind eye or have these blinkers on where we are either choosing to not, or we haven't yet got the skills to be able to, or feel familiar with the skills to be able to access the subconscious and learn more about these patterns that are keeping us stuck, or having us continuously producing the same results in our life that, are maybe not feeling so good. Right. So a blind spot is something we're not aware of, or we're aware of it, but we don't understand its complete function. Right. So the awareness hasn't grown to a point where we have the information we need to be able to strategically heal, shift, and change that. The other thing that I want to define before we begin are our values, because that's going to be part of this conversation too. So as humans, we all have values. They're shaped from our life experiences. Each individual human will have different values, and they can change throughout our life. And in fact, they will. And the most common times that they change is when we go through a significant experience in life. And so our values are what's important to us. basically, right? What's important to you? And one of the ways that I coach my clients through this is we don't just get clear on what are your top values or your key values in life. We look at what are their top values in the 6 different key areas of life, which is really important to understand. When we can articulate, what are my values in relationships versus health versus career and business versus money and wealth versus lifestyle and how I play and how I adventure versus my purpose for existence. Yeah. Then we have the information in these somewhat separate areas of life that also do interweave and crossover to see where there might be conflict showing up. Right? Because a conflict could be a blind spot in and of itself as well. And what I mean by that is maybe you value, let me have a think about this for a second. Yeah, one came up actually for a client recently in the last week where she was valuing in career her true expression is maybe what we could name that value, right? So she was questioning the work that I'm doing. Do I actually believe in it? Am I actually able to express and bring all of my gifts through this work that I am doing, right? And then there was another value of financial stability and financial growth. And so on one hand, she could immediately honor, if she wanted to, that value of true expression, so self-expression in the space of career and business, and say, actually, this isn't for me, I quit, right? But maybe she doesn't have a plan for what's next, or maybe she needs to study something beforehand. And so that's all well and good if it is not going to impact financial stability and security. However, if it is, right, and all of a sudden it becomes really challenging to pay rent or the mortgage or put food on the table or be able to do, certain activities that play into other values, like, not just food on the table, maybe it's buying organic whole foods, right? All of a sudden there's going to be a conflict that's created. And even though you're honoring one value, you're now deeply in misalignment and dishonoring an alternative value that's really important for you as well, right? So our values are what's important to us. And blind spots and values are going to feature as the key topics in this conversation. Now that you understand what a blind spot is, basically, a gap in your growth that you haven't seen yet, the reason why no matter what you try, you still feel stuck because there's something you haven't seen yet, that's a blind spot. Our values are a freaking incredible measure for where we're at with our growth and how we're going with it. And this is where the passionate part of the conversation is going to drop in. I see and I hear a lot of coaches saying, like you just need to know what your values are and you just need to live in alignment with your values. You just need to figure out what's important to you. And then you just need to make your choices from that, right? And at the most basic of basic levels, for sure, that's factual. However, what I am not seeing and where this can cause a lot of frustration and confusion and pain, right? And this was true, they were things I probably said when I first started as a coach, right? And I was working with clients, and then I would observe clients that would remain stuck even with the training and the tools that I had had to that point in time, right? And so whenever that had happened, I got really curious about, okay, well, what else do I need in my toolkit as a coach? Or what is it that I haven't learned yet, where I don't have the depth of understanding and the depth of knowledge to actually be able to guide women to not only, put pen to paper and make a plan, but to actually feel on board with that in their body and to not be facing into this like wild, overwhelming, really, really strong resistance and self-doubt and self-shaming and self-judgment and everything that fits in that bag when they're trying to live the life that they want. And here's what I discovered. as I got more curious about it, I learned that there is a very, very, very big difference, between what your values are currently sitting here or wherever you're sitting, sitting in your car, standing in your kitchen, laying on the beach, listening to this podcast. There is a big difference between what your values are right here, right now, versus what you are aspiring for your values to become. Because here's the thing with your values, they're not necessarily what you like, right? They are values are what are meeting your needs. And often that will be determined by your childhood imprints, your subconscious programming, the coping mechanisms that you have, and your level of emotional intelligence, right? And so this is the first, I teach values in a few different categories, but today we're just going to talk about these two categories. One is your current day, right here, right now values. And then what are you aspiring for your values to be? I'm going to give you an example, right? Because when women come and they work with me or I have conversations with them, they will come and they might say to me, I really value holistic health, or I really value self-awareness, or I really value happiness, right? And yet they're not currently a representation of that, right? Maybe they're saying, I really value self-worth. I really value honest communication. But when we sit and have an honest conversation about how they're living their life right now, and this is not through the lens of blame, judgment, critiquing, right? This is just a factual conversation because we can only respond to facts. And so when they open their heart and they bring their curious mind and we can have this conversation around, well, what is your life currently reflecting that your values are? That's when we get to begin to see, okay, there's a gap here. There's a gap between where I am currently and how I'm living my life currently and what I'm aspiring for that to be. Now, for sure, lady love, there are some small pieces to this puzzle of moving to where you are right now and where you want to be. That will be as simple as, okay, I've decided that I'm going to do that bit differently. And so now I'm doing it, right? An example of that might be, I've decided that I'm going to eat healthily. I've decided that whole foods is a really important thing for me. I can see that it's going to benefit me. I'm going to get great results from it. And so you make the decision that you go to the farmer's market on the weekend, maybe you research some recipes, you buy those ingredients and they're in your fridge, right? And then the actual embodiment or implementation of shifting to a whole food nutrition plan, right? Where there's not also soft drinks and processed foods and seed oils and all of that going in your mouth anymore can feel really challenging, right? Because actually there's some emotional work to be done in between, and there's a driver at a deeper subconscious level, a subconscious pattern, a blind spot that needs to be looked at before that gap between where you currently are now and where you're aspiring to be can actually close and you arrive to aspiring, and that becomes your new current value. And so when I'm hearing this from women, I value confidence, or I value happiness, or I value a holistic health or holistic lifestyle. I value play, I value adventure, I value rest, I value feeling good, I value honest communication, I value authentic connections, right? Where their current values are often at is fear, self-doubt, passive or indirect communication, where maybe they're setting a boundary, but then they go back on it. Or they might say something in passing, but they're not having the full conversation that helps to empower and educate the people in their lives to understand what is and isn't okay for them. Yeah. Or maybe they're having that conversation, but then when that boundary is challenged, they're not able to continue to re-honor the boundary. So maybe inconsistency, right, is another current value where sometimes they show up as the value they're aspiring to, but then sometimes they don't, right? And part of that might be resilience and emotional intelligence. I mentioned that before, right? Like they hit their capacity of, I don't know how to tolerate feeling discomfort. I don't know how to explore what this discomfort is here to show me. The fear feels so overwhelming and so consuming. I need a break from it. And so they revert back to the old value, or they revert back to the old pattern of behavior. So I gave the example with food or nutrition. They revert back to emotional eating, or they'd been on a really great run with going to the farmers markets and buying high quality food, nutrient dense food. And then all of a sudden that stops happening. Yeah. So this is a really important conversation for us to be able to have. And it's such a powerful measure when you understand it for you to sit down and journal on, right? And you could do this really easily. I can give you an exercise right now where you take out a clean sheet of paper, you draw a line vertically down the page. And at the top of one side, you can write current values. And on the top of the other side, you can write aspiring values, right? And aspiring might be easier to begin with, right? So how do I actually want to be feeling? I want to be feeling happy. I want to be feeling confident. I want to feel calm. Yeah. I want to be valuing restorative sleep. Yeah. I want to feel deeply respected and connected in my relationships. Yeah. So respect, connection, relationships might be the values. And then to uncover what is probably more of a blind spot for you, which is where you're at currently. Some great things to look at, the bank account is a very, very powerful one, right? Like your bank statement is not going to lie with where you're spending your money. Your schedule is another, right? Like if you use a digital calendar like me, if you open that up and if you look at like how much is in there, how many hours of the day that you're working, how much you're doing, are you overcommitted? Is there maybe, these huge spaces where you can actually step into more of what you want, but you're not doing that, right? What sort of food is going into your mouth? Yeah. Are you hydrating? How do you feel after spending time in your relationships, right? Are you feeling uplifted? Are you feeling celebrated? Are you feeling energized? Are you feeling alive? Are you feeling understood? Are you feeling connection? Yeah. Are you feeling appreciated? Right? Because if that's not how you're feeling, and yet you're saying that you value or you want to value respect, honest communication, depth, connection, yeah, intimacy, love, then if you're feeling other than that after you spend time in your relationships, that's a sign that you're not actually yet an embodiment of those values. Yeah. And so maybe some of what you're valuing instead is comfort, right? It's comfortable to not have honest conversations. It's comfortable to say yes when you're invited certain places or when something is asked of you, instead of saying no, because it's not the type of relationship that you would love to have in your life. Yeah. So these are some of the examples I can give you of where we can begin to, and something I'll say about this is subtleties are actually everything. right? It can be easy to jump on the bandwagon of like, oh, so long as I'm doing the big things right. When it comes to healing and growth, the subtleties are everything because they are the blind spots. Yeah, they're the things that you're not seeing or you're not noticing or that are probably most uncomfortable and that are slipping through the cracks, meaning they would ask you most to step out of your comfort zone. And so some of these doing the bigger things, right, that fit into that category, some of these are maybe feel more familiar, more easy, more comfortable. And so they're getting done, but the subtleties are not, right? And so, yeah, this is a really, really cool exercise to see where is there disembodiment? Yeah, where am I not in alignment with these values that I'm aspiring to, or this life that I'm aspiring to? Yeah, where is there a conflict? Where am I saying I want something, but when I look closely at my behavior, it's not a match, right? And again, I cannot highlight this enough to you, my love. This is not about shaming or judging or critiquing yourself. This is about being able to have a really clean, honest conversation of, okay, I want to take ownership that I'm not showing up in this way. Or I want to take ownership that I'm allowing myself to believe that I should just be able to get this result, but I'm not willing to have a hard conversation. Or I should be able to feel connected in my relationships, but I keep prioritizing the ones where I actually feel let down, disappointed, misunderstood, maybe even disrespected and dismissed. Yeah. This is powerful information when we can observe it and detach from what it means. Yeah. So, oh, cool. I can see that. And I don't need to shame myself or make it mean that I'm a shitty person or that I'm not good enough or that I'm failing. I can actually see this as gold. Oh my gosh, I can see the missing piece. I can see what I've been blind to. I can see exactly what would need to change for me to have more of what I want. Right. And when we become skilled at that, it actually gets to feel like relief when we see the gap, we see what we've been missing. It's really, really powerful. Yeah. How you speak to yourself. That is another great test or check of where you're at currently versus where you're aspiring to be. Again, not to make yourself wrong, not to belittle yourself, but as really clean, clear, honest information, right? So that exercise in your journal with a piece of paper is one way to look at this. Another is, a really powerful question that you can ask a trusted loved one. Yeah. Someone who is living life in a way that you really value. Yeah. This is not a question for someone who is unable to receive your boundaries, reacts or gets disappointed when you talk about what you need or when you say no. That this question is not for that person, right? So this could be for, a trusted friend. It could be for a trusted colleague. It could absolutely be a great question if you're working with a coach and you haven't been able to articulate what you want help with. This is a phenomenal question, right? Where can you see, this is the question you would ask, where can you see I'm not living in alignment with XYZ? Or where can you see that I'm not being the person that values XYZ? And you would insert the value into XYZ. Beautiful. So I think that's the majority of what I wanted to bring to this conversation. I really just wanted to make it really clear that it's not as simple as saying, I like that thing. That's what I want to become more of. So now I immediately and automatically value it. That's not how it works, right? Beautiful that you can be aware of the direction you want to go in, what you want to have more of, what you would like your life to reflect. Yeah, what you would like your reality to be. And the power comes from being able to distinguish, where am I at currently that is not this, right? Because it's immediate feedback to us. And I just see it, with women, it can feel soul destroying and so frustrating, and they feel broken when they think it's as simple as saying, oh, I now value holistic health. But then they can see that there's inconsistency there, or they feel like they're failing because their life is not reflecting that back to them yet, right? So if we can begin to see any misalignment anywhere that we're not embodied, we're not implementing, we're not a reflection of where we want to go and the value we want to have, let's start seeing that as clean, clear information, like honest data, honest feedback that you get to become curious about, that you get to ask yourself, where do I need more support around this? What is it that I don't understand about this yet? What skill might I need? What emotion might I need to feel? What thing from my past is unresolved that could be contributing to this? What feels like the block? Yeah, what might that block be? Again, more of a blind spot, so that I can access more of this value I'm aspiring to have. It's such a powerful feedback system, right? I want that and I don't have it. Cool. Let me get curious about why that is and collect some information, some feedback, some data. All right, gonna leave this one here. Lady love.
Thank you for being here for this conversation, my love. If you would like more free resources, if you'd like to learn about my programs or coaching opportunities, you can find all of that information at my website, gemmahanley.com. I'll link it below in the show notes. And if you would like to connect daily, head over and find me on Instagram. My handle there is Gemma E. Hanley, and I reply to all of my DMs there personally. If you enjoyed this episode and found it valuable, please share it with someone. You never know who needs to hear one little thing to take their day from feeling stuck and heavy to light and free. See you on the next one.